Hello, grade 8s, and welcome to another lesson with fractions. Today we're looking at adding fractions. Now, the thing that makes adding fractions more difficult is that we must find a common denominator. And I often refer to the LCD, meaning the lowest common denominator. And it actually is best if you find the lowest common denominator because it keeps your fractions smaller, right? So L being lowest common denominator. So what does that mean, finding the lowest common denominator? When we do that, what it means is that the size of the pieces must be the same before we can add them. Right? That's like saying we take one giant piece of pizza and another giant piece of pizza and we add them together and we get two pieces of pizza. Well, if we took two mini-sized pieces and added them together, we'd still get two pieces of pizza. But they aren't the same size, so we can't really do that, okay? So we have to have them the same size so that we're talking about the same amount. Okay? So let's look at an example using diagrams to begin with. Okay? So we're going to add using diagrams, and you're going to get some of these on your assignment as well. So remember we need to cut into the same size pieces and then add the number of pieces together. Okay? So if we look at this first square, it's been cut into 4 pieces and 2 of the pieces are shaded. So that means it's like 2 pieces of pizza that come from a square pizza. And we're going to add to that another square pizza that's been cut into 4 pieces. So when we look at this, all of the pieces are actually the same size. So this square, the shaded part would represent 2 shaded pieces out of a total of 4 pieces. And we're going to add to that 1 shaded piece out of a total of 4. And because they're both cut to the same size, we can add them and you end up with 2 plus 1 giving you 3 pieces out of pizzas that have been cut into 4. So you simply add the top and use the same denominator. Okay? Now what happens when the pieces aren't the same size? Okay? So we'll go back to circular pizzas. So this is a round pizza that's been cut in half so that we have 2 pieces. And we want to take one of those and add it to a pizza that has been cut into how many pieces? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. Okay? And in order to do that, the pieces all have to be the same size. So what we want to do is start placing the lines that we see on this pizza onto that one, and take the lines we see on this pizza and put it onto this one. And we have to make sure that all pieces are the same size. Okay? So let's start. This line here doesn't occur on this pizza, so we're going to put it there. Well, what happens when we put that line there is that it takes each of these pieces and it cut it in half. So to make the pieces all the same size, that means we're going to have to cut all of these in half as well. So now, I didn't go through the center very well, but we get the right idea. How many pieces do we have now? Instead of 6 pieces that were originally there, we now cut them all in half, so now there are 12 pieces. Okay? That means that now we have to take and we have to cut this one into 12 pieces. Okay? So what do we see? We see this line here, so we need to go straight down there. And then when we think about going from here to here, we've got 2 cuts. So that's the same as here to here. And there's 2 cuts, that means we have to put those 2 cuts in there. If we put 2 cuts into that quarter piece, we have to put 2 into this quarter piece and 2 here and 2 here, so that now we have all the same cuts, and we'll count, make sure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 pieces. So this now has also been cut into 12 pieces. So now, how many are shaded? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are shaded there. How many are shaded here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are shaded there. So we're going to take 6 shaded pieces out of a pizza cut into 12 and add it to another 6 shaded pieces out of a pizza cut into 12. Then we add the top numbers together, so 6 plus 6 gives you 12, and you put it over the same denominator, so pizzas cut out of 12. Now, 12 divided by 12 can actually be reduced, right? Or 12 over 12 can be reduced, because 12 in the bottom can go into 12 at the top once with none left over. So our final answer is going to be 1 whole pizza. It should make sense. 12 pieces out of a pizza cut into 12 would be the whole pizza. Okay, now let's look at rules for being able to do this without drawing pictures, because drawing pictures is a lot of work, and being able to cut the pieces into the same size is not really that easy, particularly when the pieces start getting smaller and smaller. Okay, so we're going to look at some rules, okay? And we have to get them in the right order, and they're all things that we've done before, okay? So the first step is to convert mixed to improper, right? And we've done that before, mixed to improper. Then we need to find that lowest common denominator, okay? And that's something that, in fact, is maybe new to some of you. And I'll give you a technique for being able to do that. Once we find a common denominator, that means same number on the bottom, right? That's the same size pieces that we see here. That's basically what we're doing. Okay, cutting them into the same size pieces. Once we've found that common denominator, if we change a denominator, we have to then find an equivalent with that common denominator. That means we're changing the top in the same way that we changed the bottom. Then what do? We add the numerators. That's the top numbers, and that becomes our new top number, our new numerator. You're going to place that over the same lowest common denominator, and then you look at your answer. If it's improper, you have to convert it back to mixed, and you need to look at your fraction and make sure that that fraction is in lowest terms. So those are a lot of skills that we've practiced individually. Now we need to put them all together, okay? So let's look at the first example. So no whole number on either of those fractions, so we don't have to do step 1. There's no mixed if there's no whole number. The next is to find a common denominator. Well, this already has a common denominator. It has 4 on the bottom. So we can skip step 2. Then what does it say? Add the numerators. That means add the top. So 3 plus 2 gives us 5 at the top. And we're going to place that over our same denominator. Okay, we've got denominators of 4 on the bottom. Now, look at this. Is it improper, right? Yes, 5 is bigger than 4. So that means we have to go to a mixed number. So 4 goes into 5 once. 4 times 1 is 4. So there's 1 more here. That 1 left over goes at the top over the same denominator. Now we look at our fraction. Can we go lower? Well, because it has a 1, it means the number can't go any lower. There's our final answer. Okay? Let's look at a second example. This one is a little bit tougher because we don't have common denominators. First step is to get rid of the whole number by converting mixed to improper. No whole numbers, so we can skip that. So we need a common denominator for 5 and 3. So we always start with our biggest number. So when we go to lowest common denominator, we start with the number 5. Now we go 5 can go into 5 once. Can 3 go into 5? It can, but it can't go in evenly, so 5 doesn't work. So we go to the next number 5 would go into, which is 10. Now we go, can 3 go into 10 evenly? No, 3 times 3 is 9, so it doesn't work. There's 1 left over, so that one doesn't work. Keep going. The next number 5 would go into is 15. Can 3 go into 15? Yes, it can. So that becomes our common denominator. So that means we're going to have 15s on the bottom. That's our common denominator. So now we have to find this second part of step 2. We have to find the equivalent with that lowest common denominator. So we need 4 over 5 to equal something over 15. So what we do is we look at how did a 5 turn into a 15? I'm hoping that most of you recognize you would multiply 5 by 3. So if you multiply 5 by 3, you have to multiply the top also by 3. So 4 times 3 gives you 12. That's how we find an equivalent. These fractions, 4 over 5 and 12 over 15, are equal to each other. All we did is cut the pieces up and make them smaller. So now there's 15 pieces instead of 5. Then we have to go to the next fraction. How did that 3 become a 15? I'm hoping most of you recognized it was by multiplying by 5, so we need to do the same thing to the top to keep it equal. So 1 times 5 gives us 5 at the top. Okay, so again, 1 over 3 is the same amount of pizza as 5 over 15. All we've done is cut the pieces smaller, but it's still the same amount of pizza. The next step is to add the top. So 12 plus 5 is 17. So we're going to have 17 over 15. Place it over that same lowest common denominator. Now look at your fraction. 17 is bigger than 15, so it's improper. So we need to turn it into a mixed number. So 15 goes into 17 once. And 15 times 1 is 15. We have 2 more. So the 2 left over goes at the top and the same denominator at the bottom. So now look at your fraction. Can we go any lower? Well, 2 is a prime number that only divides by 2, and 15 doesn't divide by 2. So that's our final answer. Let's go to a third example. All right. Now we have a mixed number. So we have to get rid of the mixed number by converting it to an improper. Remember, multiply first and then add, starting at the bottom and working your way to the top. So 6 times 2 is 12, and then 12 plus 5 is 17 over 6. Go to the next fraction. Multiply, then add. So 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. So that gives you 4 over 3. All right, put the add between. The next step is to find a common denominator. They're not the same on the bottom. So we start with the biggest number, 6. So for our lowest common denominator, 6 would go into 6, it would go into 12, it would go into 18, etc. Right? Lots of numbers 6 goes into. We want to find the smallest that 3 would also go into. So 6 goes into 6 once, it goes into 12 twice, it goes into 18 3 times. Those are just multiples of 6. Now, what's the smallest of those that 3 would go into? Well, it's actually 6. Okay? 3 goes into 6 twice. So that means our common denominator is 6. Now, we have to convert these into something over 6. Now, this 6 at the bottom stays a 6, so nothing changed there. So that means the top won't change, so that's going to still be a 17 over 6. Okay? Let's look at the second fraction. Well, 3 turned into a 6. So how did 3 become a 6? I'm hoping you recognize that you multiply by 2. So if you change the bottom, you have to change the top in the same way. So that means we have to multiply this by 2. That gives us 8 at the top. Okay? So now what we need to do is we need to add the top. So 17 plus 8 gives us 25. over our common denominator of 6. Now again, this is an improper because 25 is bigger than 6. So we need to figure out how many times 6 would go into 25. And I'm hoping you would recognize that it goes in 4 times. 6 times 4 is 24. And we have one more left over. So that one left over goes at the top over 6, which is your common denominator. Now, again, this fraction doesn't reduce. So there's our final answer. Okay? So remember, the hardest part is step number 2 here. Finding your lowest common denominator. That means if you change the denominator, you have to change the numerator, the top number, in the same way. And that's how you find your equivalent. Okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and we'll see you soon.